The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board right now, send us an email. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to this episode of Down the Garden Path. We're here each week discussing down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is currently a design-only business here east of the GTA. And with me is my co-host, Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I am Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you, from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media and email.
That's right. And we want to thank you once again for joining us Down the Garden Path and let you know that you can always check out past shows of Down the Garden Path on your favorite podcast app. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you can be notified of new content. And please like, share, and leave us a comment.
That's right.
That's right. Well, welcome to the show, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. What are we talking about tonight? Tonight we have a guest.
We do have a guest. As we are wrapping up our 2019 season, where everybody in the industry is kind of looking ahead to 2020, right? Everybody that we work with at the garden center, So as we look ahead to our 2020 landscape season, we decided we wanted to discuss the importance of landscape design in our industry.
Yeah.
So joining us tonight is Patrick DuChene. He is the owner of DuChene Design Solutions, located in Ocean City, Maryland, providing landscape design, 3D visualization, and consulting for landscape contractors in the design-build industry. Patrick has 25 plus years in the industry and experience managing multi-million-dollar landscape design build divisions has equipped him with the sales, estimating, and construction experience to provide a dynamic and comprehensive design service for his clients. Patrick and his design team at DuChene Design Solutions deliver the highest level of customer service to every client every day with every project. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, that was quite the bio.
Well, that's about it.
Yeah, I know. Try to get.
It's all about me.
That's right. Try to get 25 years in one paragraph. That's the best way to do it, right?
Right.
Excellent. Well, why don't you tell us, why don't we start off and you tell us a little bit about how things work with your company?
Okay. Well, so I was in the industry for many years, and I saw a niche niche, however you want to say it, to do what I'm doing. And I saw a need for landscape design services for landscape contractors, especially when the economy was really hurting back in '07, '08, '05, '06. So it was kind of a slow start, and then it really took off. And I really attribute that to my passion for customer service and doing what I say I'm going to do and do it as well as I possibly can. So it took off. It stabilized. I'm happy with the growth. And what we do is landscape design, 3D modeling, rendering, and some animation services to landscape contractors only, not homeowners. Not that I have anything wrong with them, but that's just the market that I decided to go after. And I've been so happy. I've been so blessed to find a very small handful of very talented and trustworthy people to rely on to help me operate my business. So they have the same passion for customer service that I do and making people happy. And I'm very lucky. And you guys, from talking to you a couple times, you seem like you love what you do, and there's nothing better than getting up and knowing you're going to get paid to do what you're going to do today because you love it so much. So if I had to do something else, I would, but for now, I'm good.
You're
with what I'm
good.
doing.
Excellent. No, I mean, true. I think landscape design is one of those passion projects, right?
It is.
You know, where we can use our creativity, we can make money, we can work with people. You know, it is it's why I do it.
That's why I love it.
Yeah.
Being outside, too.
Oh, yeah, being outside, too. So, Patrick, a lot of your business, or how much of your business is remote?
100% of it. 99.999. I have a contractor in Ocean City I do maybe 5 drawings a year for.
Okay.
So other than that, it's all remote. Do not really see any of these sites in person unless I go to visit them in person. But other than that, that's it. And but you know what? It's funny. I know some of these sites better than some of my contractors do because I stare at the photos all day long. And I know where there are hose bibs and window wells and things that maybe they didn't pick up on, because if I don't get those right, there's problems. And we don't want that either.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's something that they're a little hesitant in the beginning because they don't understand how you can do a successful landscape design for something you haven't seen, but it's actually really easy. But there are processes to get that information, and there are ways to communicate with people to extract the right amount of information out of them without making it a laborious process and unfun. Because if it's not fun for them, then there's no reason to have me around. So the goal is make it easy and enjoyable for everybody, so I do my job right and they can sell their work.
Excellent. So you must really have to train them or give them guidelines of what information you need for you both to be successful.
And you know, it only takes 2 or 3 projects though. In the beginning, I show them the file structure I like to use. Dropbox is a great way to operate. I really believe in file organization. So, but 2 or 3 projects, that's all it takes to work out the kinks. Some people are really good at information. They give too much, some not enough.
Mm-hmm.
So you really kind of have to, it really is a relationship that has to establish. And I'll tell you, the first or second year I was in business, I realized it was a really good lesson to learn about how you need to adapt to your client. It was someone in Pennsylvania. This poor guy, I had him banging his head against the wall trying to just get Dropbox to work.
Oh.
And I lost him. He just disappeared.
Okay.
And I know it was because he just couldn't get it all to work with this Dropbox thing. And at that moment, I realized I need to be completely flexible with my contractors because this is a agriculturally based industry. It is not a tech savvy industry. I mean, we all have iPhones and Samsung whatevers, but it really is not a technologically advanced industry. So I just decided if they want to text me the photos, that's fine. If they want to email them, that's fine. If they want to take video, that's fine. Whatever they need to do, I'll do it. And I think that that's good for everybody to understand. I know that there are some homeowners listening to this. There are some contractors listening to this. And the most successful relationship in this industry is one where both parties understand what the other is going through. And if either party doesn't understand that, it's not going to be a very successful, it's not going to be a very smooth process.
You're right. Okay.
So it was a big learning experience, and I didn't make that mistake again.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's good to only do that once, right? Learn from your mistakes. Yeah. And I'm impressed. I can't wait to hear more about that, because I can go to a site myself and then I get home and even in my photos I'm like, you missed that one. Oh, I know there was another window well, and I go through like all my 60 pictures and I've missed that one window well, and how could I miss that type of thing? So it can be challenging to get all the information from a site, even from a visit. So for you to have someone else do that information for you and be successful, that is remarkable.
And I understand, I do not miss any of that at all. Measuring, taking photographs. And I was up in Michigan with a client, and it was right after they had, it was in the middle of a huge storm or whatever. It wasn't fun, but they were bidding work and getting measurements, taking pictures. And I thought, it sounds like that you just appreciate what you have. I mean, I enjoyed it at one point, but when people don't give me good information, I understand that they have a lot of other things going on too, and they don't wake up every morning just to go get measurements for Patrick DuChene. They have families, they have lives, they have bills, they have 50 other people bugging them for something. So, but again, when the homeowner understands that the contractor is dealing with 30 or more of them in a weekly basis, it hopefully will make them understand what contractors are going through. But contractors need to remember, when they call somebody to come and remodel their bathroom, and then the guy leaves and they say I'll get back to you in 7 to 10 days, and they don't hear from them. Well, that's what it's like when you're not calling your clients back. So I'm not saying to remodel a bathroom to learn a lesson, but have a contractor over every once in a while to get a price or something and see how that experience is. And you'll remember really quick why customers get so irritated when landscape contractors don't call them back. And it is a horrible problem in this industry, getting landscape contractors to call people back and do what they say they will do. And if you do both of those things, you're going to be so successful. All you have to do is do what you say you're going to do. Do it on time, and that's it. You're going to beat almost everybody, because it's a systemic problem. Yeah.
No, it is. And it's funny how it's universal, right? Here we are in the GTA in Ontario, and you're in the U.S. and Maryland. Yeah, I mean, it is universal. And I think the season hits so... maybe it's different in the California where they've got a bigger season or a longer season, Patrick. I don't know if you have any knowledge about there. But with our such a condensed season, that it just never fails, that everything gets away from the contractors and returning calls. And it can be challenging. Even as a designer, I often say to my customers, you're not nagging me. If you need to reach out, you have one. Don't forget, you have one landscape designer, where I have, 30 clients on the go right now, 30 balls in the air. So please reach out to me and initiate if you haven't heard from me, or if you've got a question, that type of thing. So
yeah, and to interject really quick before we get into the design part of it, don't be afraid to tell somebody, I just can't do this work until X date. I just, right now, well, actually, August, September, there are a lot of companies that are scheduling into March and April then. And people need to understand that. So
Yes.
if you overpromise something, all you're doing is you're irritating two people. You're irritating your client and you're irritating yourself, because you turn around and walk away and you think, oh my God, what did I just do? How am I going to even get to that? I can't even do that. Why put ourselves through all that pressure? Just be honest with people. If you can't do it, you tell them, I can't do it, and they'll respect you more for saying, I'd love to do it, but I don't want you mad at me because I told you something that I couldn't do. If you want to wait, you'll be the first one in March, or whenever the weather breaks, or
Right.
whenever we get finished with the workload that is up before you. But say no to people, and it feels so good to say no to people, because more often than not, they walk away respecting you a lot more than after they are disappointed when you don't do what you said you were going to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's a big thing for everybody in our industry to realize, is how far ahead you need to book a landscape contractor. I mean, now in November, I mean, most of the fall, the contractors are booking up their March and their April and their May. So it's the people. I know that was the hardest thing when I first started, and people would call in February and figure that they would be the first people for a design in February, thinking that they would be the first install, May 1st. And it's like, well, no, you're now going to be maybe the end of June or beginning of July if you're lucky.
Right.
So I think that's improving. I think people are starting to understand that, but we can't mention it enough, I don't think.
Well, a reputable contractor will not be able to. No, let me take that back.
Okay.
Most often, a good, reputable landscape contractor is not going to be able to go see you and start your work in a week or 2 weeks,
Yes.
unless they have some big void to fill, where something they're waiting for permits or something fell through or whatever. But I mean, so in the homeowner's defense, there's a lot of things that I don't get about how the plumbing industry works and how all these things work. But the problem is when we explain that to a homeowner and they turn it back around like that's our problem, or it's our fault, or it's not acceptable. Well, it is acceptable because other people have called in, and don't get mad at me because people want to work with me. You should be glad that I'm telling you I am so good at what I do that I can't work for you for 12 weeks, but in 13 weeks, I'm going to be on your property, and you're going to see exactly why all these other people waited for me, and you're going to be glad that you waited for me as well. So again, you don't want to scare somebody when they call you and say, hey, we'd like a patio. The first thing you don't say is, we're 13 weeks out.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
You say, that's great, we'll meet with you, blah, 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 and go through it. And then when you're meeting with them, let them go through the spiel and let everybody talk and say, we're booking into this. We're normally, on average, booked out 8 to 10 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. We're very selective who we work with. I'd love to work with you if you'd be willing to wait for us. And just say it respectfully and nicely to people. And I think that, there's ways to get people to let their guard down. And when you can say things in that way to let them put their guard down, it's so much more pleasant of an experience. Now, if they beat you up and say, well, that's not acceptable, then say, you know what, I'm sorry, but it's not fair for me to slide anybody. I would not bump you out to spit somebody in either. It really is first come, first serve.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the most part. So this whole conversation we had tonight, there's going to be interjections about communication the whole way through, because when the communication breaks down with these two parties, that's when the whole thing falls apart. It's all about talking.
Yeah.
Those problems.
Yeah. And I think if clients, if there isn't good communication right off the bat on that, when you start off with that scenario, then it just means that you're not a good fit, right? And I think, don't you think that's, sometimes we may cave, or we might overpromise, and we might try to do all this stuff to save the business, but usually that never ends well. So it really is better just to accept that, we're not a good fit, our timelines didn't work out, And
you're exactly right.
yeah.
And you know what? There are a lot of times where you respectfully part, and then they call you back in 4 or 5 weeks, and they say, okay, I think, how's your schedule? Where they may meet a few people, and they may not like anybody as much as you.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there are a lot of contractors listening to this now and will listen to later who have been plenty of situations, and you have too, where you do a design for somebody in 2018 and they disappear, and then they called yesterday and said, all right, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
We're ready for permits, and that's like free money almost. Those are awesome. But you never know when people will pop up back in your life and reward you for just doing it the right way the whole time.
Yes.
So it's all about expectations.
Yeah, that's perfect. So let's talk a little bit about design then. We love having another designer on the show, so this is great. But I think people think they only need a design if they're doing a really high-end project or doing a pool.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think all of us can agree, the three of us here can agree that it's important to start with the design for any size project.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all he has to say about the matter. Next
you just
question.
said yes.
All right, show's over.
Yeah.
So I wrote this sentence out right before we got on this
the air.
call.
Okay.
The vision and the price are everything. That really is what it boils down to. I mean, that's not as like Shakespearean as I would have liked it to have sounded. But,
okay.
It really is. So why do you need a design? So we'll go through the specifics, but a design lays out the vision and it lays out the price. It doesn't lay out the budget. I hate the word budget, and we'll get into the word budget. Budget is a word that should not be used when discussing landscape negotiations or discussions. So the vision is a design basically is proof that you, or it's not proof. How do I say it? It's something visual that shows whether not the contractor understands what your vision is. So, Joanne, you've called me and you want A, B, and C done, and I come back to you with a design, and that shows you whether I listened to you. It shows you what goes on in my head as far as what I'm capable of creating for you based on what you asked from me. And that right there is kind of a pre-qualifier of how well did I connect with you? How well did we connect? Because, we're going to be dating for 3 or 4 weeks.
That's right.
Depending on how long your project lasts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you're going to talk to me just as much as you talk to your significant other, your children, or whatever, because I'm taking a lot of your money and I'm going to be on your property and I'm going to be whatever.
Yes.
So that vision needs to be established and the price needs to be established, not the budget. So here's my spiel about budget.
Okay.
What's your budget is the dumbest question you can ask somebody. And there are going to be people who disagree, which is completely fine. But if I have somebody coming and doing, let's say I want a new bathroom put in because I painted it this really ugly frog green color that I did in one of my places because it did not look like it did on the swatch. It was awful, but I lived with it. So I have somebody come and give me a price on my bathroom, and they say, what's your budget? Well, no, doing what I do for a living, I would think, what kind of a stupid question is that? But if I didn't, how do I know what it costs to do this stuff? Like my budget's nothing because I don't want to spend anything.
Yes.
But okay, so I have $10,000 in the bank. That's my budget.
Yeah.
That's fine, but that doesn't mean that you can do anything with it. So the right way to attack this from a contractor's point of view is if you called me and I went and I listened to everything you said, I would say, okay, Joanne, here's the deal. You want A, B, and C. We can do them all together. We can do them differently. But this whole thing, from what you said, for me to do something that looks good, that you're not going to worry about you wasted your money, this is probably going to be in the $80,000 to $100,000 range, depending on the finishes or how big you want the plant material, or if you want any lighting. We can go through those kind of details. But is it going to be 50? No. Is it going to be 150? No.
Right.
It's going to be 80 to 100. That is where this is going to work. Does that number? What do you think about that number? That's going to be the deer in headlights look, where Joanne looks like she just remembers her oven on fire and she wants to run away, or you say, yeah, that's kind of the money that we were thinking. People are pretty good. I mean, I think with the internet and Amazon, and people are pretty savvy now. They kind of know what things cost, so hopefully you have a good gut. But if I were to ask you what your budget was and you don't know anything about this, how are you supposed to tell me 40 or 50? That doesn't mean that I can do it.
Yeah.
So then here is a comeback from a homeowner then. Well, I don't want to give you a number because I don't want you to take advantage of me.
Right.
Okay. That's fair, because that stuff happens in any industry, where if you tell somebody that you have $50,000 to spend, they're going to try to do $40,000 worth of work and try to make as much money as they can because they mismanaged something else, or they just want to make more money.
Yeah.
The answer to that is, listen, when I tell you that allows me to spend your money the most. That allows me to do as much as I possibly can at this place for that, because we charge consistently to everybody. So we don't mark things up a certain, now, unless we've got to hike 50 foot up a hill or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, things are pretty consistent. So when you say, 80 to 100,000 sounds good, I'm thinking, what can I do for her to blow her out of the water for $80,000 to $100,000, where I can still be happy that I've paid off all of my, paid my overhead, and we made our margins and everything's good, and I'm not feeling bad that I undercharged. That's the answer. So if they still can't tell you, I just don't want to tell you, then you say, listen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a drawing for about 80 to 100,000. The design fee is going to be, I don't know, let's go 5% of that. Let's say, I don't know, 4,000. That's a lot of money for a design for $80,000. Let's do like a $1,500 design fee or $2,500 design fee.
Okay.
And that's going to be based on what we just talked. So if you don't mind, if that sounds good, then let's run with it. And if they say, yeah, that sounds good, then you say, okay, I'll be right back. I'm going to write some notes down, just kind of an outline of what we talked about. I might do you could do a simple sketch or something like that for them. And before you leave that site, they sign a design agreement. They pay the design fee, because if they order something tonight on Amazon, they don't pay for it when UPS shows up at the door.
Right. Yes.
They forget this 50% now, 50% later.
Oh, I do that. I confess, I do that, Patrick.
Right. And how many times have you been burned the last 50%?
Yeah.
Or they make you spend more time doing it. And now, if you track your time, instead of making $100 an hour designing or whatever, you ended up making $45 because you spent 8 hours longer. So this all goes down to the right client. So we don't make money. Now, I make money on design fees, but when you're managing and you're building projects, that's kind of like a loss leader thing. You just got to, you're covering your overhead at that point and trying to cover your time. So we charge 100% up front. If you're not happy with it, I'm sorry, but that's how we operate. You don't want to say if you order a brand new basketball hoop on Amazon right now, you're not paying when they deliver it.
Yeah.
But I suggest that.
Okay.
But when you leave, they sign the design agreement, they give you a check, and they sign the notes and the sketch that you made. And hopefully you can do it like on a carbon copy, because when you come back with a drawing and they say we don't like it, if they say no, we don't like it, that's one thing. But if they say it's really not what we talked about, we'd rather do a square pool, that's where you can say, okay, that's fine. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
This is what we kind of agreed on in the beginning. If it's not too much and you're not nickel and diming them, fine. Spend an hour or two, make the simple revisions. If they went from a lagoon-style pool to a square, whatever pool,
formal,
with
yeah,
spa now,
mm-hmm.
and you know what happens then.
Yeah.
You can fill in the blanks here. It just ripples out to the patio, to the plantings, to the wall, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that, if it's 8 or 10 hours and they expect you to do it for nothing, say, look, like, this is what we talked about. So that design fee conversation is one of the worst conversations to have with people, because our industry is so I don't even know if under-respected is a word,
mm-hmm.
But you know what? They paid $50,000 last year to have their house designed, and they had no problems with that. But they won't pay you $1,500 to design something that their kids are going to be swimming and walking on, that could be a life or death situation of figuring out how to maintain a slope so their basement doesn't flood. So
yeah.
That's the design fee thing. Make sure, again, it's all transparency of, this is what you're signing up for me to design.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's going to cost. We're going to collect it all up front, and I'm going to give you a drawing that's in this price range.
Okay.
That works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you don't show up with a drawing for $150 and they say,
yeah,
oh, this is awesome,
mm-hmm.
but my neighbor probably can do it because he works for Chase Manhattan Bank and he gets bonuses every year or whatever like that. Who knows?
Yes.
Right? Makes sense?
That's right. That's right. We do have a couple of questions on the computer here, Patrick. So Steve writes in and he says, can a designer really do a good job in the winter? If someone's yard is covered in snow, how can they really get a good take on the property? I'm just curious. Thanks.
Well, that is a good question.
It is.
And the answer to that is it has to be explained to a homeowner if they call on a Tuesday and you have an appointment for Saturday and you live in Canada, you can get 20 inches of snow in a day.
Yeah.
Which I think you got with what?
We did.
A few weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, we totally did. It shut us down, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine you had you're a perfect example of who to talk to, but a phone call should just be made of, listen, there's really not anything I can do right now. I mean, you don't even really want to meet with them on site because there's really not a lot to talk about. Mm-hmm. So I think most people are going to be pretty darn understanding. If they're not understanding, run away from them anyway, because that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
So that really might not be a very rewarding answer to his question, but there really isn't a lot. Now, if you're somebody like me who does it remotely, your goal is to really diversify and have people in Tennessee and North Carolina and California and Canada and kind of everywhere.
Right.
So you do get some work. I will tell you, though, wintertime, I don't want to say it's a struggle. It's not a struggle if you manage your business through the year and your money and you don't spend all your money. But, like, wintertime is kind of a time for people to just, they slow down a little bit. The weather kind of gets to them. There's Christmas.
Yes, yeah.
It is a slow time, and it's a hard time the first couple years of doing what I do because you don't have that momentum of that. And there are some winters that it could be 50 degrees up in Toronto well, maybe that's not true. But there are nice days everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You might have a mild winter somewhere.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There is a lot of activity.
Yeah. I would answer Steve and say, typically my answer is that I can design until the snow flies. And then we'll have situations like 2 weeks ago where we couldn't do it because everything was covered in snow. And there were some appointments that got canceled. but now we're clear again, and we, until the next snowfall. So you still can get out and take photos and measurements and things like that. So, it's doable as long as, the homeowner understands that, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think that a contractor or a designer should be going out in 3 feet of snow and measuring and trying to, convince the homeowner that they can do a good job, because things will be missed.
You're right.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you look like you're not really all together. I mean, you're not really a reasonable person. Like, why would he wait? You don't want somebody to lose respect for you because you're out tromping around 3 feet of snow when they know as well as you do that there's nothing good coming out of any of this. You don't want to look desperate, like whatever. You don't want to waste your time. It's better staying home and just telling them you're on my schedule.
That's right.
You're on it. You're not getting moved. You're not getting bumped.
Yep.
I'm not seeing anybody right now. So you're not losing any spots.
Yeah. So Jason has written in, and he says, "Hello, everyone. Very interesting show. Who would think? We often plan and use consultants for interior decorating or home construction inside the home, but not really for our gardens. It has made me open my eyes to this concept. Thanks for the show tonight. I have learned quite a bit." Well, thank you very much, Jason.
That is great. That's Joanne. That this is one of the. I think this is one of the best professions out there,
mm-hmm.
and there's nothing more enjoyable for me than to help people learn how to do what I do, which is kind of stupid in a way because I'm almost teaching people to do what I do.
Yes, yeah.
You don't ever want to train somebody how to do your job.
Yeah.
I know that there are certain things that I do well that some other people wouldn't be able to do well, as far as how well I service my clients and everything like that. But if he's even considering doing something like this, it's the best job in the world. I mean, when you can drive your kids to school at 8:15, come home, dilly-dally around until 9:30, and then get your day going. I mean, Jeff Bezos doesn't schedule his first meeting until 10 a.m. in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You know that?
Wow.
Did you know that, Joanne?
I did not know that. That's
Jeff
great.
Bezos doesn't schedule his first meetings until 10 o'clock in the morning. He calls it his tinker time or something like that. He gets up at 4 in the morning, reads the paper, eats breakfast with his children. He's a very interesting guy.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've watched a lot of
stuff on him,
of a lot of YouTube on him. And if anybody's looking at how to better themselves as far as handling their business, watch every Jeff Bezos interview on YouTube, and it will completely enlighten you on how to treat your clients and how to grow your business without doing all the stupid things like worrying about what everybody else does. So jump into it, Jason, and it's a great opportunity. You may make less a little in the beginning, but there's a lot to be said about the freedom of doing what you want to do on a daily basis.
Excellent. So we have another question, Patrick, from Mike. Mike says, "Hi, Joanne and Matthew. Love your show. I have been considering a design consultant for upgrades in my yard here in Toronto, but everyone keeps telling me how expensive a consultant is. So I am shying away from it. In all reality, how expensive is the process? I know that there are a lot of variables when considering a designer and price, but what can one expect as a ballpark figure? Thank you." So that's a great question, right, Patrick? Because
I think so.
Not all designs are created equal, and having people understand the price.
All right. So the first part of that was what? All of his friends. What was his name?
Mike. He's saying people are telling them that it's expensive to hire a consultant.
Okay.
I think it's one of those things that's even more expensive not to hire in a consultant, but go ahead.
Well, yeah. So expensive, that's all relative.
Right.
And absolutely. If you're putting in a $200,000 or $300,000 project, you could spend $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 to have it designed, but that's I wouldn't say it's expensive. It's part of the deal.
Yes.
Your health insurance is expensive, but it keeps you alive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but we still complain about it, but we need it to live. So now here's the deal. The contractors that I work with, a lot of them are charging for design fees. And the ones that are having no problem charging for design fees that are getting busier and busier, they're now charging a consultation fee to go and actually see you, which I don't have a problem with that either, because if you did that 8 times a day and you didn't get a design fee, what do you have to show? You go home and you say to your kids, well, I didn't really accomplish much of anything today.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you want to say I covered my time.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be turned off if somebody charges you to go and visit you. But you don't want just any guy coming and visiting you charging the money, and then you meet with him and it's just a complete disappointment. I mean, there's nothing worse than ending up spending $200 for somebody that gets there and you think this guy or this girl and I are so far off the spectrum here. Or they do it and they never call you back. Mm-hmm. But that should be something you would put in a contract. Like, if I don't have an estimate in 10 days, I will get my money back, or whatever. And I've never thought of that before, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I think, and your input would be good here too, because you do this, you're out in the field even more than me, but really the research of 2 to 3 people to call in the area with the right reputation is really the way to start. And the first thing you want to do is figure out what kind of work you want to do. So I don't know if Jason, right?
Oh, this one's Mike. No, this one's Mike. So yeah.
Mike? Okay.
Yeah. So
Mike,
is there a range? Do you think there's, Patrick, like a range in the industry, or it really does depend on what you're trying to do, Mike? But there, I think landscape design, there is a range, just like there are in other designs, right? Whether it's graphic design or interior design.
There is a range, and I don't want to say something that would get me in trouble with other people trying to go out and give designs, because obviously my fee for somebody is different than what they are going to charge their client. Now, there are many times where they're just charging their client what I'm charging them because they don't want to mark it up anymore.
Right.
And I am by no means the most expensive designer because I do a lot of volume too. And I'm not like a puppy mill, but I know that if you overcharge, you're not going to get as much work. So, so it'd be nice to know if Mike, well, here's the question. What's your budget, Mike?
Yeah.
Right? How much would he want to spend? So let's say that Mike had a project and he wanted to spend about $100,000.
Okay.
$100,000.
So he's putting in a pool, let's say, and a patio, and
So the pool's going to eat 50, the patio's going to eat 25, and he has 25 for, site restoration and $5,000 worth of plants or something. So there's $100,000, and I am really thinking on my feet here, but 2 to 5%. And I'm eager to see what your feedback is on this too, Joanne. But if Mike or anybody could think to themselves, if I think this is going to cost $100,000 or $100,000, I'm probably looking at about a $2,000 to $5,000 design fee. Mm-hmm. I know that that's a really big range, but I don't want to get myself in trouble.
No, for sure.
A homeowner calls and says, "Why listen to Joanne?" And Joanne's guy said this should cost $2,000.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
I don't want that happening.
Yes, no, absolutely.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I think it really depends on the scope of work. I know most of the designers that I work with, we actually have our prices online and on our websites because I think it sets expectations. And I mean, yes, it says starting at, because once we have a conversation and I know what's involved, and even if it's a basic backyard, but like you've got, tons of retaining to do, or, it's not even dependent on the size. I've had some people that say, well, my yard's really small, but then it's a really complicated installation and every inch counts, so the design doesn't mean it's a cheaper design. So, so I think there's a lot of variable in price, but I think, Mike, it it is. I have had so many people, and I'm sure you have too, Patrick, where people say it was worth every penny because it saved them so much that they knew what they were going to get for the price, for the money. They could, make changes and you could just really visualize what you were getting. Because I think there's the opposite where people, it's a game of telephone and they come home from work and they look at what the contractor did and they're like, well, that's not what I asked you for.
That's
and,
right.
Well, that's what I thought you told me. And, that's the game of telephone. But whereas if it's on paper and it's, clear and everything is itemized out, then, it's an excellent arrangement. And I think you'll find it's worth it.
It's almost like an insurance. It's really an insurance policy to make sure that when that company shows up to his house, they understand what they're doing and he knows what they're doing. I mean, you don't really want to be away on vacation when a contractor's doing your property.
Yeah.
But there are 3D modeling and rendering is really becoming a big thing, and I can tell you that the contractors that are going out with my 3D renders and other colleagues out there as 3D renders, that is so transparent that the crew knows, the owner of the business knows, Mike knows. Mike could go out of town for 5 days and not worry about it because he has renders that he knows that Joanne knows exactly what I wanted when I called her to do my property. So I know it's money, but if it's that if it's that important for you to get the work done, it should be important to invest in that and try to get past that kind of money. Now, then we get into the situation where Mike, here's Mike's famous tonight, by the way. Mike's job is $100,000 and the design fee is $5,000. Don't be mad at a contractor if they don't say they're going to credit all that money back to you, because, I don't really believe in that a lot either, and here's why. So you're devaluing your time.
Right.
You're basically saying we're working for free. And here's the other thing. It's interesting. My brother had a patio built, and I designed the patio for him, and I knew all the numbers. He had me look through all the pricing to make sure it all was right and everything, and he was talking about some extras, and he said, they're making a ton of money anyway. We're spending $40,000 or whatever it is. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I just threw out a number, but I said, Philip, do you really want to know what they're making?
Yeah.
And I said, let's take $10,000. At the end of the day, that company might put $1,000 or $1,700 in the bank.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's after paying their insurance. That's after fueling their trucks, buying their blades, paying for
disposal.
Rental
because
the Bobcat went down. So, you see $100,000 price tag, but the company is putting hopefully $15,000 to $20,000 in the bank after all is said and done, and that is in a perfect world where you're under a bubble. You didn't get any rain. You could show up every day. No equipment went down. Nobody called in sick, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
So understand that landscapers it's not super high margin work. Where it's a lot of work to make a good living in the landscape industry, and people don't really understand that. So I don't want to say cut us some slack or whatever, but
yes,
you look at it from the numbers side of what little we're making on all of our hard work.
All right. So when we're talking about designs, we can probably both agree too that not all designs are created equal. What should homeowners look for in a design when they're ready? Okay, they want to pay for someone to do a design, but we're not talking napkin sketches now, right? We want a design.
Yeah. So number one, that design needs to come back to you in a timely manner. That's number one. The best design means nothing if it took 4 weeks to get to you and you were told 7 to 10 days. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, a good design. Well, that it's all about polish, layout, arrangement, like it's getting into like things that I even teach in design courses.
Mm-hmm.
All your lines for your labels should be parallel to one another. All the font should be the same.
Mm-hmm.
All the, I shouldn't say what he called these bed lines. No, I can say it. I had a customer, and he always would talk about these sexy bed lines. And he would always wear this Mickey Mouse shirt, too. It's so funny. This guy with a Mickey Mouse shirt would talk like that. But he was talking about these sexy bed lines. And in school, they refer to not making coat hanger curves. So you want really nice radii. You want you just want, you need to see harmony.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see that they thought everything through, which they answered what your question of how can you do what I want. So I guess number one, they showed up on time. Number two, they showed up with a drawing that was clean. It was easy to understand. If they want to throw all these grades and everything on it, that's fine. That's, to me, I don't think it's not necessary in all situations.
Right.
Sometimes they just do it because they think the more ink on their paper is going to make them look better. But it actually, people's eyes go cross, and they don't even know what they're reading. So it was very counterproductive to put more ink on a paper.
Should be to scale. What do you think about that, though? It should be to scale.
Well, yeah, it should absolutely be to scale.
Okay.
It should have a graphic scale on there.
Mm-hmm.
They should be able to very easily take you into the yard and show you some spatial dynamics of this is how far this is going to be, this is how high a wall is going to be. And it gets into that price range that you discussed. Don't ever send a company back to do a design without discussing a fee, because the worst thing is for somebody to show up with a great design and there's no way you can afford to spend it, because I don't want to say that's an embarrassing situation, but that is that's not a good situation for anybody.
No,
so
for sure.
When I read that question that you sent me about that, it's kind of a tough one, because I've never really thought of it from that angle.
Yeah.
So if I were to pretend I was on the other side, I don't know, I'm pretty simple.
Yes.
Get something back to me, make it clean for me to understand, and don't try to make it overcomplicated, because this industry can be pretty dramatic too. There's a lot of drama in our industry, and there's really no place for that when you're just trying to take care of somebody and give them something that can make their lives better and give them something to do with their family. So timely fashion, clean drawing, it's to scale. So if you bought it, you could scale it out, you could walk it out in the yard, and it gets you into the price range that you want, and that there's some flexibility there. I mean, very rarely do I ever send anybody a drawing that, the customers will love them, but there's always changes that are made. So, that's fine. Sometimes when things are getting built, they're not always what you completely envision, but if they're close enough, you can. Reasonable adjustments are fine.
Do you find people often phase things too, and that you've done a whole design, but yet this is first year we're going to attack this area of the yard, and then second year we're going to do the sides of the house or maybe the steps down, that type of thing. But when you've got a design that has the whole thing, then it's much easier to visualize and figure out how you can prioritize it.
Absolutely. And that brings up a point of, I can't remember if there's a term for it, but when you do more work at one time, it costs less overall.
Right.
Because for homeowners to understand this, really, it's mobilization costs a lot of money. And, with Mike's pool project, if he has 70 feet where they've got to access his yard, they've got to put all that back together, and they've got to soil that and seed it and clean it all up. But if they go back in next year again, they have to redo. That could be $3,500 to put that back together. So do as much as you possibly can right away or in as short amount as possible to save yourself. I mean, you can spend 10, 20% more on a job by phasing it out. But if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. But hopefully you're a contractor, and hopefully contractors out there are being flexible with people and not being upset because they didn't get to do all of it. I mean, better to do something than nothing. And sometimes when you hold off on things too, better decisions are made down the road. And when I sold work, I never wanted to pressure people into doing more because I understood that sometimes when you do something like the pool and you leave it alone, your thoughts may change because you're living this and you're like, let's not put a walkway in right now. Let's just put stepping stones in. It's like the center of Ohio State University. If anybody has seen that, they call it I can't even remember what they call it anymore, but the pathways are completely, you wouldn't think anybody in their right mind designed it. Well, nobody designed it. It was grass, and they let people walk for a while. And it was like cattle. People dictated where the pathways should be, and then that's where they put the pathways. So that was a tangent. But sometimes you just have to kind of let things sit a little bit too to decide what to do. So don't pressure people into doing too much work, because that's a turnoff too.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're running out of time, but I wanted to see if I can get one more quick question in.
Sure.
Just to speak to our contractors that may be out there quoting and giving, little napkin sketches. What do you say to them how have you revolutionized your clients' businesses with a contractor hiring a qualified designer? In like 30 seconds or less, Patrick.
Okay, take 10 seconds again to ask me that again. Really quick.
How do you see? How do designers help contractors be more successful? Is that better?
How do designers help?
Yes, contractors who don't do their own designs. When they hire us, right? When they hire us to do a design for them and for their clients.
Here's the benefit. They're not carrying a salary all year long. Mm-hmm. They use us when they need us. We learn them real well. If they find a good one, we're very loyal people because that's our livelihood. Mm-hmm. So, a good consultant designer like me will help you manage yourself and help you be better. And that's what a good remote designer will do. They will want to make your company as good as you can, because the better you do, the better we do. So it's just a matter of finding the right designer and finding one that understands not only design, but understands how to construct those designs, what things cost to design. Like, if you tell me to design to $100,000 budget, I can do it.
Right.
Some people can't, and that's challenging. So a designer is just a designer, but a designer needs to be really well versed in construction and estimating, and that really makes a full service design company.
Excellent.
Like, whatever.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we got a lot of information for everyone, and we covered a lot of different areas of our industry. And I just thank you so much for joining us here. We did want to give a shout out to, why don't you tell everybody your website and your social media links?
Okay. So my website is DuCheneDesignSolutions.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm not the greatest at it, but I'm on it. And my name on there is DuChene Design. And for any Dynascape users out there who are learning it or could use some refreshing, I am having a workshop in January, January 13th, 14th, right? Second week of January. It's 8 o'clock. I'm getting tired. But actually, it's 14th, 15th, 16th of January. Come in Charleston, South Carolina.
That's right. Join me, because I'm coming. So
I know you will be there. That's how we met.
That's right.
Great. And I will teach everybody how I use the software.
Excellent.
I'm going to going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be some really neat sponsors and hosts there, too. So it's going to be really awesome. A great happy hour.
Perfect. All right.
Stuff.
So I hope that we have listeners that want to join us for your workshop, and there's more about that on your website.
There is.
Excellent.
Yeah, you can register for it right there as well.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much
You're
for joining
welcome.
us.
Thanks, Mike.
You. I loved it.
Excellent. Bye for now.
Okay, goodbye.
Well, we want to thank everybody for listening and hope you enjoyed this topic. And if we have more questions, then you can feel free to reach out to us at downtoearth.ca.
naturalaffinitydesigns.ca.
That's right. And thank you, everybody, for joining us down the garden path here on Reality Radio 101.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your host, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.